Hi everyone, my name's Bryan Elliott. I'm the CEO of the Starfish Alliance, and here we are in my office slash podcast studio slash spare bedroom in the house slash world headquarters of the Starfish Alliance. It's good to be with you. We don't have a regular podcast. Maybe someday. I love podcasts. I love the information that's out there. But when the opportunity arises, I want to be able to record some good content to share with you as it comes up with us here at Starfish. And we have a great reason to share some information with you now. We have always said, in addition to doing camps and mentoring clubs in the future, we wanted to be a resource for carers, for professionals, for volunteers, for anyone who might be in this space that we work with. That is working with children who have experienced trauma and some real challenges in life. And whether you are a foster carer or a social worker, we value the work that you do. I mean, we work with kids maybe a week out of the year, and those kids will come back year after year, but there's 51 other weeks where you are the people that are doing all of the work, and we want to support you because we think you're heroes. We think you're amazing in your sacrifice of time and treasure and energy, helping make life a little bit better for children in care. And so with that, we have put together an amazing event on the 28th of February. It's going to be at All Nations Center in Cardiff, and we're calling it the Starfish ToolKit Event. As the name implies, there's tools involved. There's resources that we want to provide for you, the caregiver, even adoptive parent, the teacher, whatever it might be. Part and parcel of what we do that makes our program, our camps special. We're not just a camp, like a week at Butlin's or whatever. We design our camp, our curriculum, our activities, everything around the experience of the care experienced child, ages 6 to 11 or 12. And our volunteers are trained. Each one of our volunteers has 8 to 12 hours of training before they can take part in a Starfish Kids Camp. Part of that training is in trauma-informed practices for working with children. And we based our training on something called TBRI, Trust-Based Relational Intervention. It is one of several trauma-informed methods kind of here. It's new to the conversation in the UK, but we think it's a very, very, very good tool for helping carers and teachers and anyone else that engages with these children. It gives them tools to respond and to address, the situations and the challenges that arise working with care experienced children. So on the 28th of February, for this first Starfish ToolKit event, which we hope there will be more in the future, we are bringing a day of training in TBRI, in trauma-informed and trauma-responsive caring. And so we invite you to come. If you are a social worker, if you are a foster carer, if you are an adoptive parent, if you're a teacher, if you're a volunteer that works with these children, you're welcome to come. It's from 10 to 4, so it's a better part of a day on a Saturday, which is important because we wanted to make sure we weren't just reinventing the wheel. So we did some consultation and found out that having a training that wasn't during the weekday, wasn't during the work week, was important, and also having a training where childcare was available. So we're going to have some of our camp volunteers who have been background checked and trained. They have experience working with care experienced children. They're going to be providing childcare up to the age of 11. So if you want to bring your kids, we've got a space for them, and we're going to serve a light lunch as well. So you might be asking, oh, wow, this is incredible. What's this going to cost? I'm glad you asked. It's going to cost zero, nothing for you. This is an investment we want to make into you. And so, but you do need to register because of childcare and because of lunch. We need to know numbers. We need to make sure we're prepared. So please register. There will be a link available either in the description of this video or elsewhere where you can register. Otherwise, you can go to starfish.org.uk and you can follow the links there to register for the Starfish ToolKit event. Today, on this kind of a one-off podcast, maybe there'll be a few more in the future, but no promises, but we'll do our best. Today, I have Leonie Beynon-Webster joining me. She is one of our TBRI presenters that will be training. Misty Elliott, my wife, co-founder of Starfish Kids Camps here, and also a trauma-informed TBRI practitioner. They will be giving this training on the 28th. And we thought it would be good to have Leonie on the camera today and just chat with her about what TBRI is, what trauma-informed and trauma-responsive education and training looks like, and what people can expect when they come to our toolkit event. So we've got about 30 to 40 minutes with Leonie. We invite you to watch and to enjoy and to sign up. This is going to be a valuable training for you if you are involved with care experienced children. So without any further ado, I guess, as they say, but there's always just a little bit of a further ado. I'm going to stop here and we're going to go into our interview with Leonie, who is our TBRI practitioner for today. Well, hi, Leonie. It's good to have you on today. We're looking forward to hosting you. You're going to make
Thank you so much.
You're going to make the long trip from way up north to almost way down south, not quite to the near bottom, but to Wales, and that's quite a journey for you. So we're looking forward to you coming for our Starfish Toolkit training event. We'll get into that in a little bit, but first, I want to know who you are and a little bit about your story, what you do now, what got you interested in working with children, your passions, your visions. We don't have to go down the trail of what kind of tree would you be if you were a tree. We don't have to get into any psychological riffraff. But Leonie, who you are and what got you interested in the work you're doing.
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for having me, Bryan. It's a pleasure to be with you and the Starfish Alliance. My name is Leonie Webster Beynon, and as you said, I'm up north here in the beautiful county of Yorkshire, and I am a certified nurse midwife practitioner, trained at the University of Leeds, and I'm also a clinical psychotherapist, which I did my postgrad in, and then when I lived in the US, I had the privilege of becoming a trauma practitioner with the Karen Purvis Institute of Child Development. So I have a broad gamut of experience. I'm also an adopted parent. I adopted my son back in 2005 out of residential care. And even before that, my parents were foster parents. So I grew up in a beautiful big house full of wonderful and challenging kiddos and with their beauty and their behavioural needs. So my work has kind of continued the trajectory of my life. And now 30 years later in 4 continents, I'm still advocating for the needs of children.
Wow, what a journey. Tell me real quick, just to kind of give us some color to who you are. What are some passions? What are some visions? What are the things that really drive you? That can be anything from knitting to changing the world.
Okay.
Or anywhere in between.
Okay, well, my passions first and primarily are my family, my son and my husband. And I'm also interested in policy reform for therapeutic interventions for residential care in developing nations and in schools here in the UK. On the personal side, I love horses and I'm involved in equine therapy, and I'm an avid reader and an absolute wanderlust traveller.
It's amazing, we have seen at our camps, at a few of them, we've had some animals that we have come in, and we've had horses, and it's amazing when you see the change in a child when they're confronted with a horse. People. I used to think horse therapy. What kind of drivel is that? And then you see it firsthand how animals can really just open up a child. It's amazing. It's amazing. You seem your experience, has led you to working with children who have experienced some significant challenges. You said you adopted your son out of care. How old was your son when you?
I met him when he was 20 months in Latin America, and I actually moved into the orphanage to live with him for 2 years throughout the adoption process. And in that journey, actually became in management for the residential facility, because I just saw the wider need, not just the need of my son. And through that unique experience, it really gave me a grassroots insight to the challenges of group home living, not only for the children in the care, but the staff who are there also.
Wow. And how old's your son now?
He's 22.
Wow, 20 years.
Yeah.
That's amazing, really. I mean, Misty and I, my wife Misty, we found ourselves almost by accident in this, what I call the fostering space, some years ago through our work with church planting and that here in Wales. And because of our travel schedules and that, we're not able to foster at the moment. But we always push the idea that, not everyone can foster, not everyone should foster, but everyone can do something. It sounds like you've done a little bit of everything.
Yeah. Well, I try to, but also just to be an advocate for the voiceless as well. And my involvement with international non-profits and the local church. So we have a collective impact approach, because individually we may be strong, but together we're powerful.
Oh, yeah. I'll say amen to that. Sorry.
Yeah.
Amen. I've been in Britain long enough. I can say correctly on that. So you have seen in your work with, you said you work with institutions, you work with individualized foster care. In your work in these spaces, take us through some of the common themes that might underlie the challenges. We always tell people that work with our camps, these are special children in special ways. Can you kind of walk us through some of the things that make their experience perhaps unique, challenging?
Yeah, sure. Well, as you know, children from hard places, as Dr. Karen Purvis calls them, are children with attachment ruptured histories, or those who have experienced disrupted attachment through inconsistent caregiving. And they often have a plethora of behavioural modulation challenges, such as fear or shame-based behaviours, or sensory regulatory difficulties, often resulting in short or long-term developmental delays. And this can be a perplexing time for both child and caregiver and teacher, as they learn to navigate in synergy the needs of the child, but looking behind the behaviour to see the child at the centre.
Let's kind of start at the beginning a little bit, the idea of attachment, because correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the attachment issues can sometimes can lead to trauma. Trauma can often lead to detachment, but because detachment, is it just about getting enough hugs when you're younger, or is there more to it than that?
Well, attachment is a huge topic for discussion, but what I would say is that as adults we all have our own attachment style. And one of the concepts that are frequently missed is caregivers don't often know or are unaware of their own attachment style. So if you was raised with parents who were inconsistent, you may have a propensity to be avoidant in your relationships. That may be a trigger if you're working with a child who is in need of secure attachment. So just learning about yourselves and our own histories, to me, is one of the most important concepts as we begin to walk children through their own attachment journeys.
When do we start seeing, some attachment? What are there are there crucial points where attachment, if those attachment opportunities are missed, that they make a bigger difference than others? I mean, because is attachment just something that older kids deal with, or is it younger kids, or does it go even before birth?
Yeah, it is. And I would say with my obstetric background as well, we know that trauma starts in utero. So
Really?
even the developmental well-being of the child, if the mother is in a place of high anxiety and stress and produces lots of cortisol, that actually goes through into the unborn baby through a process called transplacental fusion and actually increases the cortisol level in the developing fetus. But also for the developing brain, it's literally like pouring bleach over the developing brain. So we know that trauma starts even before birth. And then obviously attachment is linked with those trauma points in life, with especially the first 3 years, the primary years of development, vitally important. And if those years are missed and those gaps appear, we have a raft of research now, both behavioural and neurological, so much so that we can actually look at MRI scans of children and see those who are securely attached with well-developed optimum brains and those who have had attachment ruptures, and you can literally see gaps in the brain. So we know this is beyond behavioural. It is also linked with your biology and neurological forces also.
Wow. And I would assume that if you are a child who had attachment issues with your own parents, you're probably going to have attachment issues with your children. Hence, the cyclical nature that we see in the care community.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think in the UK we're just starting to catch up, and I'm really thrilled about that. But I still believe there's a long way to go in terms of providing primary caregivers and teachers and anyone on the front line caring from children with attachment ruptured past or trauma, that there's a difference between being trauma informed and trauma educated. And I really believe we've got to continue that journey to meet optimal needs.
You bring that up, and I'm glad you went there, because the trauma-informed, quote-unquote, concept has been really rising to the foreground in the last several years. I talked with the head of a school where our local church is, and he was talking. I mean, it's a rough place, and he was talking about some of the issues and the need for trauma-informed training for his teachers. He said they just don't have the capacity to understand how to interact with some of these children. So, but let's back up a little bit. Walk us through what trauma informed, and you said trauma educated, and there's also trauma responsive. Walk us through those concepts and why that's important.
I think it's massively important, and I really share the pain of those teachers on the front line who are working with children in crisis in the classroom. But as we know, the care of the children really starts with the robust training of adults, teachers, parents, whomever. So in its broadest, most crass concept, trauma-informed is a framework and it's a huge broad spectrum, but it is where knowledge travels from being simply trauma aware to being trauma skilled, trauma educated, onto specialist interventions. And TBRI is a specialist intervention. And sadly, although many agencies profess themselves to be trauma informed, which is a positive, and we want to say thank you for doing that, there really is a stark difference between being trauma informed on a basic level and the difference between receiving enhanced, robust trauma education through specialist interventions like TBRI. So that said, it's my hope and my passion that TBRI will be implemented not only into primary schools, but even before that, Bryan, even pre-K, nurseries. Let's use it as a preventative model so we're not dealing with the behavioural challenges in the classroom.
Well, you mentioned TBRI. We're going to get into that in just a moment, because that's key, because that's something that the Starfish Alliance, because of TBRI's roots, just meshes really well with what we do. And the training we bring in February will be based in TBRI. But just again, to illustrate this, let's have a hypothetical situation. I'm a teacher or I'm a carer, and I'm interacting with a child, a 10-year-old child, and their behavior is presenting in a way that's inappropriate or inappropriate or unacceptable for the setting we're in. Using that scenario, explain to me what trauma informed would be in that situation, what trauma educated would be or do differently in that situation. Do you follow that?
Yeah, I think firstly, if a teacher's with a 10-year-old in a classroom and their behaviour is really disruptive, being trauma informed would think, oh, well, what's wrong with him? Whereas trauma educated would say, what happened to you? And there's a stark difference. So I primarily always say behaviour is a language. And what is that language telling us? And as adults, how can we respond to that need, that behaviour, and simply take the bad out of behaviour? These kids are not bad. We don't want to label them as bad kids. We want to look past the behaviour and see the reason behind it.
And I would say, even beyond that, ideally there would be some tools to implement, because you can't. If I'm a carer, just like you have a son, we have 4 kids. One of the worst things you can do is just not address the situation. It's just like, well, little Sally is going crazy and throwing pots and pans all over the kitchen. Wow, she's got some behavior, and I understand why she has that behavior. Okay, full stop, and we move on to the next. But that you can't do that. Sometimes there has to be some response.
That's right. And children learn through a sensory motor loop. So a brain example and a body example. So we know that we not only have to address the behavior, but walk them side by side with them and demonstrate with them what they should do, as opposed to punitively correct the child in a negative way. And what I love about TBRI is the combination that it combines the academic and the evidence base, but it offers immediate strategies, tools for caregivers through playful engagement for connection, verbal scripts for respectful learning and correction. For example, oops, let's try that again, with respect, but it identifies behavioural triggers and offers structured routines for felt safety and redos instead of punitive consequences. We cannot parent or care for children from ruptured attachment backgrounds the same way as our biological children. We just can't.
You have to rewire the way you think.
Absolutely, the rewiring of the brain, neurosynaptic pathways, completely.
I always joke when I'm working at a camp, I have to resist the temptation to do my dad snap. It's like a child acts up and I want to go, and my relationship with 2 or 3 out of the 4 kids was such where if I did the dad snap, they would get their attention right away. I had one child that just didn't care.
Yeah, but then we can have immediate compliance, don't we? But then we can break the connection.
Yeah.
And so it's learning how to do both.
You have to learn, because you do have your parenting styles, which may or may not be appropriate. They might be, but still, when you're in a trauma-informed situation, you have to rewire the way you think when you interact with these kids. So you several times you mentioned TBRI. Mm-hmm. There's other models already in play in the UK. There's PACE and a couple others. And TBRI is relatively new to the conversation. Mm-hmm. Explain what TBRI is, and maybe a little bit of the history, because you mentioned some names. You mentioned Karen Purvis, and that will come up. I could probably keep track. When you come down to Cardiff to do our training, I could probably keep track. Every time you mention Karen Purvis's name, I would probably run out of space, because she's so key to this. But what is TBRI? What drew you to it as a means of addressing the experience of caregivers, and talk a little bit about the history of it and what makes it stand out?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, Dr. Karen Purvis is one of my personal heroes, and herself and Dr. David Cross actually created the TBRI, which stands for Trust-Based Relational Intervention, and it was developed in the late 90s, 1996 I believe. And at its basic level, it focuses upon establishing trust as the building blocks for relational connect.
Okay.
Not only is it a robust model that is probably at the forefront of trauma-educated care, but it's evidence-based, child-centric, attachment-rich, and it's holistic because it addresses the whole behaviour, the child, the brain, the biology, and the body and the belief system. It's a holistic approach. Whereas the PACES in England, which has been around for a few years, it's very similar to one of the components of TBRI, but it's only one. And PACES, I believe it's play, acceptance, curiosity, and empathy. This is evidence-based, but it's a very small sliver. And it's just one component of the TBRI model. So TBRI is a much broader training model and offers way more in-depth understanding to the complexities of trauma-informed necessities.
Now, your friend Karen Purvis, unfortunately, she passed away a few years ago, but she was a unique lady.
She was incredible.
What was unique about her, and what made her so key to this model of intervention and relational interaction?
I think for me, Dr. Karen Purvis is a pioneer, one of the first in the field, an expert in a field, but to challenge the status quo, to look beyond the attachment model of the historic origins of John Bowlby and work out actually what we've done historically isn't working. There has to be another evidence-based approach which we can offer children and caregivers. So just from an academic perspective and a pioneering approach, she is one of my heroes. And not only that, she was a mother. She had foster and adopted children in her care, so she lived it, studied it, and taught it. So just the amalgamation of all three makes her one of my heroes.
Well, and I know a little bit about this because Misty is a TBRI practitioner as well. I am not.
Yeah.
I am on the outside, and I'm still learning and fascinated by all this. But my understanding is you have some people that are they're like children whisperers. You know, they just know how to navigate with children. And Karen was one of these people.
Absolutely.
Now, was it David Cross that kind of said, okay, I want to spend time and I want to observe her and I want to figure out because you could say, well, that's just a gift, but I'm sure Karen would say it's not just a gift. These are things that we can learn from and do. And I understand David was just observing her in an environment with children, making notes and doing his research on that. Am I correct?
That's right. And also interesting that Dr. David Cross actually grew up in the foster care system.
Yeah.
So there was a personal interest for him as well. And so he was also not only observing the behaviours of the children, but recognising patterns of behaviour in his own childhood. And then when he teamed up with Dr. Karen Purvis, she was the pioneer. She started it off as a master's, a thesis for a master's, and he came along with the logic side of it and developed it alongside her into it becoming what it is now. So it was real teamwork.
Yeah, and I'm hearing that TBRI is making inroads not into, we deal with the foster care space and more with children, but prisons even are starting to do work with TBRI.
Yeah.
Prisoners who, when they're finally interacted with in a way that recognizes their detachment issues, they're seeing. I mean, this isn't just like as we said. I don't want to overplay this, but I don't want to underplay it either. This is groundbreaking. I mean, they've seen results, real results, breakthroughs with children and with people with severe detachment issues. And so this goes beyond the academic. That's what excites me about TBRI and why we use it. We train it in our camps. So trauma-informed models, and they all start with brain science. TBRI, I would imagine, kind of starts again with brain science. You talked earlier about the brain science of detachment and even pre-birth. And having an understanding is good, but what about, walk us through some of the practical things that caregivers may learn from a TBRI training? Because I know I ran into some adoptive parents, who love their children but are struggling still they've adopted children that have some severe trauma that they're still trying to process, and they're wanting practical helps.
Yeah.
Walk us through a couple of things that people might learn through TBRI, or some of the observations that TBRI points us to when dealing with the more practical helps for carers.
Yeah, I think, like myself, I mean, I actually came into the TBRI world out of desperation in ways to help my own son. And I needed to extend my understanding of trauma and how that impacts the child. And I believe attendees of our workshop, along with Misty, can expect to learn from prolific authors of the model itself, experts in the field. They will learn the neurological impacts of the brain and be given tools that they can begin to use to rewire synaptic pathways in their brain, which have been underdeveloped or literally stunted from attachment or trauma. The workshop is fun, it's interactive, full of play, but with practical problem-solving scenarios that attendees, the primary caregivers, will do themselves. We'll give them scenarios, and they will leave not just with head knowledge, Bryan, but with practical tools that they can use at home that will enrich both the adult and the child and their relationship into healing, restoration, but then unto restitution. Because I really believe with the implementation of TBRI strategies, eventually it will become better than before.
Let's take it back to a practical example. Like I go back to my example of, I've got this 10-year-old child that is acting up. However, give me a couple things that I can do with this 10-year-old that TBRI teaches to help. What are some practical things that I'm wanting to do my dad snap, but I'm
can't do the dad snap.
I can't do the dad snap. But what are some things that I can be doing to help engage with this 10-year-old to redirect or however?
Well, we know with children, not always, but most often, they fall into two categories. They either implode and become withdrawn, or they explode and become disruptive. So I believe as a teacher with a 10-year-old in the classroom, say for example they are sensory seeking and they're spinning on the chairs and fidgeting and they need to move, the trauma educated teacher would think, he needs a body break. So she could perhaps say, hey little Johnny in the back, do you want to stand up and run on the spot for 20 seconds, followed by 10 star jumps, please? And she would encourage the proprioceptive movement to help regulate and bring little Johnny back to a place of concentration. So that would be one example. If another example, a child is disrespectful and says to another child, give me my pen, and the other child says no, and the other one snatches it, the teacher can say, excuse me, kind hands please, did you use nice words? Do you want to try that again, asking nicely? So you can model the behavior. And what I love about the TBRI model, it teaches parents and teachers to respond to the challenge at the level of behavior. So Dr. Karen always says, don't go after an ant with an elephant gun. It was just a little incident. So through playful strategies, can we diminish it before it actually ends up in World War III?
Because 9 times out of 10, there's just a need that's
it's
a need that's presenting in an inappropriate way, but you have to find out what that need is to meet it.
Yeah, absolutely. And doing simple things like crouching down to the child's level, encouraging but not forcing eye connection. Speaking in a really kind voice, and just getting attention. Simple tools, but they really work in its simplicity.
I was amazed too. Just nutrition.
Absolutely, hydration.
Nutrition and hydration, and sometimes you just need to, make sure there's protein in their snacks, or things like that. It's like things when you're presented with them, you think, well, duh.
Yeah,
it's like that makes a lot of sense, but oftentimes in the moment you don't think about it.
No, and
So,
just we know now that keeping glucose levels stable, hydrating every 2 hours really plays a massive impact on the physiological manifestations of children, even teenagers. We know as adults we get hangry if we, become hypoglycemic. We need
yeah,
food. Kids and babies are the same.
yeah, yeah. It's like those, was it the Snickers commercials? I'm trying to think if they had those here in the UK, where you're not yourself when you're hungry. You're not
Oh
you when
yeah,
you're hungry. Did you ever see
hangry.
those commercials? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. And
yeah,
that's key for that, because
yeah.
I get really grumpy if
Yeah,
I'm.
we get cranky and we get, we need the sugar fix, but we know we shouldn't have sugar, we should have protein,
Yeah,
and we're adults. And then just also the understanding that in the UK, within mainstream school, children are still forced to sit for 7 hours whilst they learn.
yeah,
Now, if you've got a kid who's kinesthetic and needs to move to learn, that can be really challenging. So for the teacher to understand the needs of the child, she can really help with preventative tools
yeah,
that enables the child to actually remain in the classroom, not be expelled,
yeah,
and learn.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
I know.
It's like I said. I know trauma-informed training is. I know some local authorities in their schools in the area require it. We're not there everywhere in the UK yet. Not
Yeah.
everyone is requiring it, and we have a long way to go.
Mhm.
We, as an organization, we wanted to step up and not just do our programs, but also find other ways that we can support carers. And so that's why we're doing this toolkit event on Saturday, the 28th of February. Speaking of needs, we found that a real need for foster, because foster carers have to go through training all the time.
Mhm.
We're hearing from adoptive parents that, hey, we're out here too. Sometimes, we sign the papers to adopt them and then everyone forgets about us, but we need some tools as well. And so we found out that to have a training on a weekend, because a lot
Mhm.
of times they'll have a training in the middle of the week, and it's hard to get off work, and
Mhm.
there's never any childcare available.
That's right.
So we're going to have a training on a Saturday at All Nations Center in Cardiff, and there's going to be childcare and a light lunch served, and at no cost to those that come. Um, you've already talked a little bit about what people can expect. Um, just to kind of close out our time, because I don't want anyone to think that we're saying you can come for a few hours on a Saturday and learn everything you need to know, and Bob's your uncle, you've got it
Yeah.
all figured out with the kids. Because what you and Misty are going to get into is basically just the tip of the iceberg
Yeah.
for TBRI. There's so much more
Mhm.
to learn. So we've got, for those parents and carers and professionals that join us on the 28th of February, it could be the beginning of a wonderful relationship, because there's so much more training that can happen
Absolutely.
on the
And that
camp.
excites me, Brian, because it is a journey and it isn't just a one stop fix all. And I think what only, if someone would have told me as an adopted parent, there's hope. There
Yeah,
is understanding, there's shared experience, because the reality is the behaviour of foster and adopted children can be baffling at times. And
yeah,
it's baffling for the parents, it's baffling for the teachers, it can be perplexing for the child also. So as we come together with a shared experience and a shared desire, do you know, Brian, I've never met a parent or a teacher who says, I want to be a worse parent or I want to be a worse teacher. The commonality is we want to do better because we want to be able to offer the best to our child to maximize the success of the placement, the health of the child, and extend and empower them into learning. And we know that children who are raised in foster care, less than 20% remain in higher education in the UK.
yeah,
So I believe really getting it right at a nursery level and a primary level as a preventative tool will
yeah,
go a long way in ironing out the problems that develop and surface later on, usually around first, second, third grade.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's a big deal, because when you're a carer, when you're a teacher, when you're a parent, it's easy to get emotionally sucked into the event, to the situation.
Yeah.
because sometimes it's emotionally driven, and there's a care, there's a heart investment here, and so times like these, it's good, I think, and that's why these trainings are so good, is to have an opportunity to kind of step out of the situation and get an objective viewpoint of what it is that's happening.
Yeah.
It's like you're not crazy, and the child
Yeah.
isn't bad.
Yeah.
There's some things at play here, and if you can better understand those things at play, you can better address the things that are happening.
Yeah, that's right. And also to lower our expectations. We know expectation can be the root to all disappointment, and often caregivers and parents, even teachers and residential care workers, have an expectation that these children will behave
Yeah.
in accordance to what they think is right. But as we're reminded through TBRI, it's actually the adult's responsibility to learn the attachment dance of the child and meet the child in its journey, not the other way around.
That's so good. That's so good, because we're the only ones that have the capacity to do that.
That's right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
well, we're really looking forward to hosting you on the day. I think it's going to be a great day. You and our Starfish Alliance co-founder and my office partner, Misty Elliott, will be presenting a day of TBRI training for carers, trust-based relational intervention, on Saturday, the 28th of February. And spaces are filling up quickly. So I think we will have a maximum number we can take, and when we get close to there, we'll let people know. But there is no cost. You do have to register, because there is childcare up to age 11. We will have basically 3 rooms, just to kind of get this out there. One for the up to 11 is what we're providing childcare for. So we'll have a room for the older kids, a room for the toddlers, and then also a room for the babes in arms. Moms, carers can go in, but we'll live stream the content into that room. So if you have to step out with your infant, you can take care of their needs, but also observe the training. So I think it's going to be a good day. But like I said, we do need people to register so that we know the numbers and we can prepare for them. We will have our childcare volunteers, our volunteers from Starfish Kids Camps that have all been trained to some level. All of our volunteers at camp have 8 to 12 hours of training, a big part of which is some TBRI elements, and they're familiar with children who might present in some of these ways. So, and Leonie, we're looking forward to having you down here, and it's going to be a good day. And anything else you want to finish with before I let you get back to your day? What's the weather like up there? It's miserable down here, by the way.
I thought it was going to snow, but it's actually just stopped, and it's grey and drizzly. It's Yorkshire in December.
Oh, I tell you what, all the climate change models are talking about the disappearing shorelines. I'm surprised with the amount of rain we've gotten in the last 2 weeks in Wales. Our shorelines haven't gone already, but there's flooding down here. So, anyway, sorry. Anything you want to close with before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I would just encourage. I remember Dr. Karen saying once, if there was one thing she would give parents, and that would be the gift of mindfulness, and just mindfulness in its entity of children, young adults, and their histories, and how we can empower them and love them on the journey to healing with our own mindfulness towards them.
Maybe at a future Starfish ToolKit event, we could talk about parent heal thyself, where parents and carers can find what are some good ways to get away and be mindful and, rest up and heal.
Yeah. Self-care is smart care, Bryan. We all need to do it.
Oh, hallelujah. You're preaching to the converted here. So, well, Leonie, I appreciate you joining us, and we will see you on the 28th. And anyone that wants to join us, you can go to starfish.org.uk, and we've got all the information there where you can register. You can find out more about what we do as an organization, but also about the Starfish ToolKit event. So God bless you. God bless you, Leonie, and have a great time. If it snows, have a great white Christmas.
Thank you, and blessings and regards to you and Miss Misty. Looking forward to seeing you. Thank you for having me.